thank you, Miss Ann, for joining us. We wanted to sit down with our elders in the community and especially women and hear a little bit about your life story. And so thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be with you. I consider you not only a friend, but we have a lot of history together too. So it's always great to be on. I'm honored to be here to be interviewed, by you and appreciate all the work that you do.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you, Miss Ann, for all the amazing work that you do as well. And, learning a little bit, you sent us over your bio and we were visiting a little bit about your life and everything and wanted to have you state your full name and where you were born, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. My name is Ann White, but my birth given name is Queen Esther Ann. And I was born in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Oh, wonderful. Wow. I always love to hear stories about people's names. Was that a name that your parents had?
It was my great-grandmother was named Queen, and my my great-great-great-grandmother was named Esther. So they put the two together, and my mom's name was Annie, so they Ann after her. So I'm named after some very strong women.
Yeah.
And I just cut it short. You know how when you grow up, you don't always appreciate your heritage or your name and where it came from. But as I got older, I began to look at the history and appreciate, the name Queen and Esther, and both of them are in the Bible. So, when I read about that, I think how grateful I am now to relish, that history and that heritage.
Yeah, sometimes I think we have to maybe grow into our names a bit more and you kind of recognize at a certain point in your life the importance and the weight of those names and that you're really carrying their hopes and dreams with you at this point. So.
Exactly. So, but like I said, it took me a while as I matured, to really understand. And I think that happens with everyone, each generation. Sometimes it takes you a bit to really recognize how important that name and the family structure is. And, so.
That's so true. That's so true. And really, when you first came to Colorado, it was in the 60s. And so wanted to learn a little bit more about you first coming to Colorado. And I know your first job is really an interesting one.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I first came to Colorado. It was, in the 65. And I remember we came, my children and I, at that time, I came with 5 children. I'd had 7 pregnancies, but 3 of them had passed. And so I came here with 5. My eldest daughter was disabled, and I was looking for opportunities, because in the South, when you had a person with a disability, were always opportunities and things, and services. So I moved here, but I remember the first day I came, we came out on the California Zephyr on the train, traveling through, and it had snowed here. And I remember when my family picked us up at the train station, I looked out, I had never seen so much snow in all my life, because where I came from, we didn't get snow like that. If you got a dusting of snow where I came from, because they did not have snow removal equipment, because we didn't get that kind of weather there. And the snow, actually, I'll tell you the truth, when I got that snow was almost up to my waist.
Wow.
And I remember my kids, they were small, like stair steps like this. They came out, and my youngest, he fell off in the snow. Oh, no. And we had to dig him out. The snow just kind of covered him.
Welcome to Colorado.
Yeah. So that was my introduction to Colorado. It's like, whoa, I've heard about the storms and the mountains and everything, But I soon got indoctrinated to it and the weather, realized that had to get heavier coats and, and boots and stuff for the kids. But, I was supportive. I had a very good family that supported me through, many things after I got here. And we lived in a duplex off of Emerson. And with the kids, I lived with my aunt and my granddad and my youngest brother. Were all there. So we came and started getting situated. It was interesting going to the grocery store. And I remember I walked at Safeway off of 20th Avenue over there, and I was walking around because I wanted to cook. And I'm walking in the store looking around, and I guess I was just looking so strange that one of the guys came out. He said, "Can I help you, man? What are you looking for?" And I never forget. I said, "I'm looking for fatback." He looked at me. He said, "What is that?" Didn't realize they called it something else here. So that was my first lesson. I'm going to the grocery store. The difference in the names and meats and different things and stuff. He said, "We call that strigoline." I said, "Oh, okay." I guess that's what I'm looking
like, at least you have it.
Yes. So I was able to find what I wanted, but that was just funny, the difference in the culture and, the people and that kind of thing. It was a learning experience.
Wow.
But
I bet. Well, you've seen, Denver really grow up in a lot of ways. And we were visiting earlier that your first job was at Lockheed Martin.
Yes.
It sounds like. And so, wow, tell us a little bit about that experience.
As I said, my aunt worked at Lockheed Martin. She retired from there. She was there for about 25 years. And that was during the time when they were really getting into the aerospace sector. And they were building a satellite. And so she was saying that there were some openings there. And she said, "I don't know if you would like to apply or what your thoughts are." She said, "But I know you've always told me that you wanted a good job where you could have benefits and you could take care of your children and everything." And she said, "Lockheed Martin is a place." So, I'm thinking, wow, if I can get a job there, be able to retire from there, I would be set. Mm-hmm. So I took the challenge. I went, I filled out the application, and I interviewed, and I got the job. And I was doing the core panels for the electrical system for the satellite. And I worked in the clean room. The little tiny little cores that we worked with, they were so tiny, you had to use the microscope and tweezers to put them on the panels. And that's where they ran the wires through there to wire the satellite. So it was a good job. It's up in Waterton, Colorado. It was quite a drive. Mm-hmm. And the winters, get pretty rough and everything. She worked during the day and I worked in the evening. So she was there. They were there to help me with the kids, to watch the kids and everything. So it was a fun job. I worked there until, it got slow. And then, of course, the seniority, I was laid off. But I worked there for probably about 8-9 months.
Okay.
But it was interesting. I met a lot of people, different folk and everything, made some friends. So it was really nice. It was a great job, a great start for me. And it was part of what I had always kind of dreamed that I wanted to do and to be. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of my start here. My first job here.
What an interesting way to kind of learn about. And when I mentioned where you had worked, Lockheed Martin is the name today. Yeah. But it's actually Martin Marietta Aerospace was the name previously.
Yes, previously.
Wow. Well, that's really interesting with the satellites. And I'm just envisioning you, and like a scientist doing all of this work and everything.
Covered, head to toe, because, it's a clean room, no dust or anything,
Oh, my gosh.
It was very interesting. It was very interesting. So that just kind of piqued my interest to see what else was out there for me. Mm-hmm. And I've always been one, I would take on a challenge, something new, because I figure, if you, and I always tell my kids, you always want to try something new, or this food or whatever, because you won't know if you don't like it if you don't try it. So, So for me, that was to try, and then, moving on from there. But that was a very exciting career for me, and it's interesting. As the years went by and I was doing different things, I ran into different individuals that had worked actually out there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Well, you're such a people person, and everywhere you go, it seems like you make friends and connections with people. So that's not really surprising that you made friends, out there with your first job, and then kind of came across them at different points and times. And so it sounds like after that experience, you worked with the Colorado Department of Labor for quite a few years.
Yes, I did. I worked there, retired after 30 years. Started there as a file clerk, actually. I actually it was interesting because I think about the Urban League and the NAACP. The Urban League was the place where you would go to if you were looking for employment. So that's when Larry Borm and all of them were there. So I actually went through there, and I was able to get a job, there. I started off, that was when the state would hire what they call temporary positions. And I was always one, I would think, okay, all I need is an opportunity, get my foot in the door, and then I can always work my way up, And so I did. I started as a file clerk at 1278 Lincoln Street. They had a office there, and I worked there, and they gave you a 6-month stint as a temp.
I remember that with the state.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And so I worked there and would go in and work, do my job. Always wanted to learn a little bit extra, so I would get there early and go around. And when people were doing other jobs, when mine was done, I didn't just sit there. I would get up and move around and ask if there's something else I could do, because I was just willing to learn, I'm thinking all in the back of my mind, if I can just get this job and become permanent, And so that's what I did. And my 6 months was almost up in April, just before my birthday. And Wendell Pryor was the personnel director. And he called me in the office, and he said, I've been watching you. And he said, Gloria and the rest of us, he says, and I noticed, he said, I know you've got kids. He says, you're always here early. He said, and you come back from your breaks on time. He said, you're the kind of person that we need in the state. He said, you didn't even know we were watching you, did you?
I said, somebody's always watching.
Yeah. I said, well, I know somebody's always watching you. And I looked up, I said, he said, him too, but we were. He said, so there's a position, he said, that's coming open at up there on Lincoln Street. He said up there, and he said, are you interested? He said, are you looking for full-time permanent? He said, you indicated that you were. I said, yes, I am. He said, well, we have a position open over there. He said, and if you like to, he said, I have an application here. He said, you can fill it out. He said, I know the person in the department that has the opening. He said, if you like to fill it out, and we can set you up an interview. I said, well, yes. He said, okay. So I did. I interviewed with that, and that Friday of that week was supposed to be my last day. I interviewed on the Thursday. They called me on the Friday at the job and said, are you still interested in the position? And I said, yes, I am. They said, well, can you start Monday? So, I mean, it was just after that, it was always
kind of fell into place then.
30 years. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, that is amazing advice, because I think so many times people think, well, let me not do more because I don't want to mess up something, or I don't, but really that where you're just curious and you really want to learn and you want to be a part of the team. And that's such a strong strength that I see in you still today, exactly with how you work with people and with the community, and, you know, being with the Department of Labor for 30 years. What were some of those, I think, big changes that I'm sure you were right involved with and worked really hard on?
Yeah, there were a lot of changes. I started off, as I said, as a file clerk. And then when I went to 1278, I was able to, I became what they call an administrative assistant. And to what they call then, when you would go in and you would file your claim, the people who approved your claim.
Okay.
And so I worked there, and it was more like filing paperwork and going through claims and date stamping and the adjudication department, they called it. So I went there and I saw there, and I started working there, and I got interested in watching what's going on there. And I'm like, you know what? This would be good, because I'm really involved with folks, and I'm seeing them file unemployment claims, and, you know, how hard it is. And you got to see people in person, because that's when you actually came into an office.
Okay.
And, you know, you filed your claim and you came into the office and you saw an adjudicator, and then they would, as part of getting your unemployment, you had to look for work.
Right.
And that's where the workforce piece came in. So the two offices were there together. So I was able to see folks come in, you know, looking for work. And I really got interested in that aspect of it, you know, getting to hear people's lives and how they were affected by unemployment claims, and, you know, the difficulty they experience, you know, even coming in to the point of not being able to get their checks so they can pay the rent or the water bill or the utilities. And then, you know, the workforce person would be calling around to try to help them to expedite their claims so they could get the monies. And that really touched my heart, because I saw the stories, I saw the heartache and the tears and, you know, the frustration that some of them experience. Because back during that time, that was when Jimmy Carter was in office, and unemployment was at a high.
Okay.
So from there, they opened up an office right there off of Colfax there, and that was the workforce office. So I moved to that, and I was able to start working in workforce in claims, you know, actually sitting down with folks when they were filing their claims and they were looking for work. And I tell you, the first they gave me a book, it was this thick. You had to learn the codes for the different occupational codes.
Oh, yeah.
And I tell you, some of those codes still stick in my...
Do they pop up every now and again, huh?
So learning those codes, you know, because you couldn't be pulling out the book every time.
Right.
And so I would go home in the evening and I'd open up that book and I'd be memorizing the codes, you know. I was telling my friend of mine that worked with me years ago, I said, 865. She said, that's a labor code. I said, yeah. She said, isn't it amazing? She said, how some of that stuff still sticks in your head.
Right.
So, you know, working with individuals and seeing it, I just really got more involved in that, in the workforce.
Oh, is that your phone, Miss?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we can pause for a quick second if you want to. Yeah. All right. Well, maybe we'll pick it up where we were just talking about the Colorado Department of Labor and really with, you know, how once you got your full-time job with the state and you were directly working with people to help them find jobs and for workforce development, and you were explaining that a lot of the same issues and struggles that people still have
Yes.
today
Yes.
were the very same struggles
Yes.
that you were helping people with. And I guess with that process and everything, what were some of those lessons or those words of wisdom, I think, that you probably imparted upon probably thousands of people that you worked with over your 30 years?
Oh,
But
yes.
what were those, it's where you give people those words of advice or optimism to keep going.
I would say, if the door opens, there's an opportunity, whether it is an opportunity for you to do a temp job or do an apprenticeship, just the opportunity to get your foot in the door and to learn. I learned so much. At evenings, I took classes at community college, just to enhance my skills and learn about everything. I took courses through the state, and most companies offer trainings and so forth. I took advantage of every training I could. And just, working through the process and moving around. I worked in several offices. I worked in Inglewood. I worked up in Brighton. I actually worked in Denver. There were times when we had to move around in the office, Bear Valley.
Oh, okay.
Just different
You kind of went
places.
wherever the work
wherever
took you.
the job was, because sometimes they would get short-staffed, and so they would call and they would want certain individuals to come to help out when they were doing claims or
I bet you were
working
a
with
popular
staff.
person. They were like, we need Miss Ann to come out.
I was, but so I had some great teachers and some managers and people, but I always put my mind to what I was doing. I took pride in my work. I still do. And I always worked hard because I always felt that was the key, because that was the environment I grew up in. You work hard and you do your best, and then, but by the grace of God, you're able, doors will open for you. Sure. And that was with me, many doors opened for me because of the things I did. I get one of the greatest things that I had the privilege of having to work in was when I got in more of the looking at the construction area. So I started learning more about the construction, because during that time, construction was really the environment that a lot of folks were getting jobs in. And because of that, when they started talking about Denver, the Stapleton Airport project over there, that's when Wellington Webb, it started with Mayor Pena and then Wellington Webb, and tearing down the old airport and building the new airport. So I worked for the state, and that's when the city and the state were starting to combine their resources. And from the state, they wanted a liaison, someone to go and work with the city regarding jobs and workforce and everything. And I was chosen the honor of doing that. So I was the first person that did the crossover from didn't leave the state, but was liaison to the city and county of Denver and our workforce program and stuff. So
what a
that
big
was
project.
Exciting. Yes, it was huge. And starting that, and there was a new airport employment office that went up out there, and I supervised about 5 city workers at the site doing hiring. At one time, there was like over 35,000 workers out there, union and non-union, that worked on that job, building that airport.
Wow.
And then came the connection with Forest City that actually got the contract for the Stapleton area and everything, and working with Landry Taylor and the people from this city, Cece Ortiz, and so many other folks in the city, doing that work, and a workforce center. Then they opened up, after the airport opened, they opened up an office over there at Stapleton Plaza. So I had the honor of also being there and running that workforce side of it and bringing people in. We had an office and it grew so fast they had to expand it, so they had to get extra space in the hotel, and they did the remodeling, and that was great. And bringing folks in, and it was amazing how just revamping old programs such as the workforce, the targeted tax credit, and working with the federal bonding program in order to help those individuals that were maybe felons to be able to get jobs and go to work. At the airport out there, we had the first youth construction pre-apprentice program that was started out there.
Wow.
And we were able to hire youth out there at the airport. They had to be 18. It was so amazing that so many of them would come out to the airport and fill out the applications, and working with those companies and businesses out there, talking to them, encouraging them to hire, locally, and give our youth, our young people, an opportunity, in construction.
Right.
And many of them did, and so we did that. It was very successful. The first year, it was amazing. The parents that would call me and they would see me and say that they were so happy that their kids were able to work.
Right. Oh, yeah. We can go ahead and we'll let you get that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the parents, they were saying that the kids would come home, they would work so hard during the day, and it's like, they don't even run the streets anymore. They come home and they're hungry, they eat and they go to bed. I was like, I hope you continue that program.
Yes. Well, you know that you're doing what you need to get done and everything when you're ready to go to bed and everything.
And one of the things I used to encourage them, because they were making pretty good, they were paying them like $15 an hour.
Sure. Oh, nice.
This program.
Yes.
So one of the things I did was an extra piece in my office. I would say to them when they got out, was give them the spiel. And I'd say, look, you don't spend all your money. I want you to put some of your money away to save your money. And that's when the America's Bank first opened up. Right. And so I had applications there, and I would give them. I said, you have to promise me you're going to go there and some of your money so that you can have something, when school starts and everything. And amazingly, a lot of them, they really worked out, and they got into actually apprentice programs, because after the airport opened, then there was Coors Field.
Okay.
So a lot of them were able to go to Coors Field.
Oh, they were able to transfer them over to that other
field and working with the union, shops and companies over in there. Yeah. We actually had some pretty successful stories, at least 4. And one young man is Thomas Stubblefield. Thomas was out there. Thomas actually has his own company in there. He does electrical work for me. So he started after he became a journeyman, he started his own company. Wow. There was one Lady Electric. She started her own company. She was the first Black female that came out of that program that actually started her own company. She worked here for a while, but then she moved back to Chicago.
Okay.
So, Benny Miller's son went through the apprenticeship of the pipe fitters. And I used to see Benny often, and he would say, wow, he said, that boy's making so much money. And matter of fact, he bought a home out in Green Valley Ranch. Of course, Benny has grandkids now.
Yeah, I know.
Talks about that. So,
but that generational piece is so beautiful to really have that and everything.
Yeah, and doing the downtown, the 16th Street Mall, there were jobs open there. The 16th Street Mall, we did the Alameda Square. Over there where they bought in the Lowe's was the Anchor store. And then, of course, Stapleton itself, with the restaurants and everything over there, getting folks to to work, and when the Walmart opened over at Stapleton and the Home Depot, we did pre-screening and hiring for that. We set it up in the hotel, and I did my spiel. Tom Gleason used to always say, he said, I love bringing the employers and these businesses that are coming to our community to you, because I would always talk to them and I would tell them how much money they would save by utilizing the workforce. I say, you don't have to advertise. You're saving money on advertising. We can do your pre-screening for you. And then also about the tax credits that they could get for hiring individuals. When that Walmart opened over there, we did all the pre-screening for them. And in tax credit, they got probably made close to $500,000 in tax credit.
Okay.
They hired folks from the community as well, and a lot of them got into management. So, those are the kind of things that I pushed, and I always felt it was important, for them to know that we had the only office that I had space in there where employers actually would come in and they would sit down and say what the workforce needs were, and we were able to get them qualified pre-screened applicants that they could interview, which they realized saved them a lot of money.
The savings is so massive with that, and it's so important. So with the work that you did out at Stapleton, and really, it's such a great time to talk to you because, yesterday or the day before, Mayor Johnston announced that he's looking at, for the Downtown Denver Partnership, to invest an additional $500 million into 16th Street Mall. And I was just talking to the administration about that, and I didn't realize I was like channeling Miss Ann in the conversation, but I talked to them about, if there's going to be that massive investment, please make sure that there are local hire requirements for those construction jobs, and make sure that you get Montbello residents and Green Valley Ranch residents involved in that project, because really, I have to say, knowing what I know about government and everything, the work that you were doing with the build out of Stapleton, now Central Park, and everything that way, you were helping prevent gentrification in like Montbello and other neighborhoods by making sure that that local hire was so important, because you were putting money right into local families, and those companies didn't have to recruit workers from other states to come in and, set up here. And so you really helped through a lot of that work. And it's so beautiful to see that that's still continuing on. And you remember those 7:30 a.m. meetings then with Stapleton and the Green Book and all of that process.
All of that, And it's important, I felt for me to actually sit on that board, not only doing workforce, but to sit on the board, because then I could educate them as they were having their meetings on what was going on, what was important, what was out there, and what they were doing by investing back into the community and hiring local people. And, I use Walmart as an example, because when that store opened and people went in there and they saw so many of their neighbors working at that store, that just encouraged them to go back, to that store and shop there. And Home Depot, the same thing, they were, overwhelmed and just could not believe. And one of the managers said to me, he said, when you were talking everything, I thought, he said, but I see what your vision was. He said, we do. He said, and people I see, he said, they're happy. They come in and they speak, hi, girl, I didn't know you were working here. Oh, yeah, I'll be back in the store, I said, when you go in a place and you see people that look like you and you know them, it encourages you to want to shop. I said, they're probably spending more money than they should spend just because of that, And so those programs were very successful, and I've always said I'd love to see those programs revitalized, again, coming back into our community. I mean, technology is good, but there's nothing like going out in person, meeting people where they are, even employers, like I said, technology is good, but it's nothing like a good old handshake and a face-to-face meeting when people can see you and they get a feel for you and who you are and what you stand for. That's very important.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. Well, and it makes all of those, community partnerships and all the work much more meaningful. And, you were one of the founding board members and really helped through that entire process of the formation of Montbello 2020.
Yes.
We, when former Mayor Michael Hancock was our city council person for District 11, we had some different R&Os and wanted to figure out how we could all work better together. And so the mayor, through a National Civics League grant, brought community members together, and we formed an R&O. And so would you mind talking a little bit about Montbello 2020 and the beginning of that, and you continuing on that legacy and important work with it?
Yeah, it was that was great. That was a great vision, for then Councilman Hancock, and then to come to be mayor. That process was bringing, community organizations together and stakeholders in the community to meet and talk about the mission and the vision for Montbello. It was recognized that we were growing and that there were many amenities that were needed out here, including schools and health clinics and all of those things, and even some infrastructure, But there was a great time, many meetings. I even remember, I cannot talk about that without mentioning elk. That was going on during the time, and you and Scott, bringing that to fruition and the meetings at your house sometimes. And,
way back when, before, even involved in the government, doing that community work together.
And, so with that, and then when the mayor, when he decided to run for mayor, and he was actually chairing that, he kind of turned the reins over to you, and you and I were working together, trying to make plans for 2020 with the vision to bring it forth, become a 501c3. And then when you decided to run for office, which was great, and it was my honor to actually introduce you into that position and everything over there at the rec center. Then the two of you asked me to take the reins of Montbello 2020, which I was so honored to do.
And you've done such an amazing, wonderful job with it. Oh, my gosh.
And so, the vision was for it to become a 501c3. And through the connections that I made with Forest City and Landry and the Foundation for Sustainable Communities, which was Stapleton Foundation at that time, I said, I always go back to what my mom and my grandparents used to say, you have not because you ask not. And so that's always kind of resonated with me. So I said, okay, we don't have the money. I checked into it, and Nancy Strudwick and I and Pinky Sullivan, of course, looked into what it would take to become a 501c3. And I was like, ladies, we can't wait, so we got to figure out a way. And so I went and I talked with Landry, and he was kind of involved in a way, with that whole process of 2020. And so he said, I said, I need to talk to you. So we made an appointment. I went and met with him, and I told him about the vision, how we wanted to move that forward. I said, but it takes money. So I went into him, and I showed him what we needed to do, the paperwork. And he says, are you going to stay with it? Are you going to stick with it? I said, I have a commitment to do that. I said, I made that commitment to to Michael and to Stacie. I said, yes, I will. He said, well, if you're going to stick with it, he said, I'm going to help you move that forward. He said, how much money do you need to get that started? And of course, I'm being conservative. I was like, okay. I said, well, probably, I said, maybe $800-900. I said, well, I'll just say $1,000. And he said, so after you do all the paperwork and you do all the filings and everything, he said, you need some operating money. I said, yes, we do. He said, well, I'm just going to give you $3,000. He said, to get it started. Right. And so it just started moving forward from there, getting the board together. And, I remember when we did our first event, we focused that around wellness and some other things. And it grew from there to the health wellness backpack giveaway. And I just remember I looked up and I was just like, my goodness, we outgrew the rec center space. Yeah. And we had some great events there. We outgrew that, and then it started to grow. More people were interested. Businesses came into play to support it. And with you and the mayor and you also and Scott and so many others. It's just grown.
How many folks did we have last year?
Last year, we had about 1,500 people that attended that event, and we gave out 2,000 backpacks.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
I remember we did it, I think, 3 years at Walmart.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. During the pandemic, yes. The lines, the police were saying, you got to get people through the line because you're backing up traffic on Chambers Road.
And they had to call in the traffic people to move the traffic.
Right.
And I was like, oh, God, what are we going to do now? Where do we go with this?
But we kept going.
Yes, and we did. And I was at a meeting, and I met the president over at Lincoln School of Technology. And I was talking to her, and she said, I heard about your event. She said everything. She said, we would like to be a part of that. I said, well, that's great. I said, however, I'm struggling right now because I don't know where we're going to host it. I said, because we can't hold it at Walmart anymore. She said, well, we welcome it. She said, we have that huge parking lot over there. She said, why don't you come and look at it? I said, well, I haven't even seen it. If it's a huge parking lot, I said,
we'll fill it.
So that's where we started, that's where we are now. And it's, it has grown. And sometimes I'm just a little overwhelmed that, how much it has grown, but how much of a need it is.
Right.
Yeah,
right. It really is. Really is.
And during the pandemic, I remember we did the drive-through, the events up there, and
and all kinds of stuff
up there at the high school in the parking lot. And I think we were so successful with the one that we did up there. Everybody started mimicking it, what we were doing.
Right.
Because we had it set up. We had a thing going there, and people were getting shots and getting tested.
Right.
We were doing the free testing. So that was great. So that was another feed along toward the health wellness, piece of it. And, now, we're doing COVID boosters and, for adults and children. This year, a couple of years ago, we added the kids zone. Right. Because I thought it was important. While the parents are walking around, kids are kind of bored, I say, let's give the kids something to do and be able to enjoy themselves, and partnership with DPD and, so many other organizations.
I think we had a bike obstacle course last year.
Last year with Parks and Recs.
So it's just such a great way to bring out so many people to learn about all the things that the city offers.
Yes, the services and everything. And this year, Scott, when I saw him, he laughed because last year, the year before, last year when we did, I tried to get the rock climbing wall.
Oh, right.
Too late to get it. So,
okay.
Dan Hurst said, you have to really be early, Miss Ann. He said to be able to get that, he goes, everybody wants their rock climbing wall. I said, well, when do I need to put in my request?
Right.
And he said, well, I would say right in January. I said, okay. So guess what? January 31st.
Right.
I put in my request.
Good.
And I kept bugging. Then when the mayor came down with because I was like, oh, God. But I just kept pushing. I said, you guys told me if I got it in early enough. So he finally called and he said, Miss Ann, you got the rock climbing wall.
Oh, good for you. Good for you.
So we're going to have the rock climbing wall and just trying to do, so adding some things I'm actually looking at because I'm finding out that there are so many kids that don't have dental care and they don't get to the dentist. So I'm actually looking at trying to get a dentist there this year, along with Inner City Health and Denver Health, and doing, some x-rays and some extended services along the healthcare line. I'm really working on that, trying to get that set up, along with some additional things for the kids zone. Bringing so many, and I'm starting to get emails from folks wanting to know if I'm going to do the event this year.
I bet. Yeah.
Also looking for sponsorship and donations. Everything is kind of tight after the pandemic. A lot of people are still struggling.
Sure.
And I know last year we gave out 2,000 backpacks and with immigrants and, and everything, and the homeless. I'm thinking we're going to have to be close to 3,000 backpacks and school supplies. So I'm really beating the bushes, trying to get those resources, so that we can have another successful event to serve our well-deserved community.
Yes.
Yeah.
And those backpacks come with, they're filled up with school supplies as well. It's just not the backpack. You spend a lot of time filling up backpacks, and it's kind of a whole community project. I never know who's going by Miss Ann's house to drop something off or pick something up. And as you've kind of come through your life, and especially as a young mother who is single and coming to a new city.
Exactly.
What were some of those things that you kept telling yourself, or how did you get through your day-to-day, especially when, you were young and you had children to support and you needed to keep going? And I was just thinking as you were sharing, and I was thinking about you getting up in the morning, getting ready to get on the road to go to, Martin Marietta in the 1960s and how early you had to get up and how you got everybody going and how did you do it, Miss Ann?
I had a lot of prep at night in the evenings, I did hair in the evenings after dinner and, tie up the hair and lay out the clothes that they knew what they're going to put on, made sure that there was food there for them to have breakfast and lunches and so forth and so on. Of course, they were young, so they were like in kindergarten and first grade and, going up through the ranks and everything. But like I said, but by the grace of God, I was very blessed. I had family support, and that's always important. And then, just knowing that I had to do that because I wanted something better for my kids. I wanted my kids to have a good life. I wanted them to have a place to stay, a safe place to be, to be educated and just enjoy life. I mean, growing up in the South, we never did without anything. And, it was a struggle back then. I know for my mom, because she was widowed at an early age. By the time I was 15, both my parents were deceased. So it was like, you had to step into that adult role and be able to do those things. But I often think back, and I'm so thankful to God for my upbringing and the strength and the lessons that I learned growing up in the South and with my family. Everything, because if it had not been for those foundations, I don't know, where I would be today and might not have had the fortitude and, knowing that you work hard and you do what's right and, good things come to those who do that. So, getting the children up and doing that and watching them grow and make them happy. And they had the things that they need that made me happy and just encouraged me to push a little bit harder and do the things I needed to do. Was it easy? No, it was hard, but I always set goals for myself, and I tell my kids and they're growing up, set goals, know who you are, learn where your strengths are and your weaknesses, because not somebody else's, but yours, because you're an individual, and we all have that God-given talent. We just need to learn and find out where it is and how to nurture it and use it. And so, and I'm so thankful, for my upbringing, the lessons taught, going to church, family, community. We learned at an early age also, in the South, that you give back to community. And it's not always about money, but, it's just sometimes the little things that you do that can make a difference in somebody's life.
Right.
And, to give back, because back in the day, they didn't have money. Most of theirs was done through sharing, bartering, exchanges and things like that. So those lessons have, brought me a long way, and being strong. And, even if you have a failure, I've learned, and you set goals, you may have to put something back for a while and then go back and pick it up. But you never give up on your dream and you never give up on your goal.
Right.
If you do that, you can truly be successful. You really can. It's not easy, but as they say, the going gets tough, the tough get going.
Right.
You just keep on and you follow your dream, So
with those goals, when you would set those goals for yourself, how would you, would you write them down? Would you pray on them? How, because I meet a lot of people in my day-to-day, and I'm sure you have too, that have goals, but they don't really know how to actualize them. And so what would you do to help
I write
yourself?
my goals down and things, and still to today, sometimes I keep a pen and paper by my bed. Sometimes I'm sleeping and I get my ideas. Sometimes I wake up 2:00 in the morning and something will just come to me, it's like the spirit hits me and I'll write that down. I was like, okay, that's what I need to do. But my goals, I've always written them down, and then and I pray over them too, every day before my kids went to school and before I would go to work. And as they got older, they became teenagers and everything, I would always pray. And then before I went into my job, I didn't know what the day today was going to bring, who I was going to meet, what the challenge might be. So I would always pray. And I would say, okay, God, here we go, another day.
Right.
But I know nothing can happen this day that you and I cannot handle. And that was what I would say before I would go into work. And, get my mind set, to meet whatever challenge it was. Because, as today, back then, people were hurting then. I mean, we had homeless back in those days, too, that we had to deal with, and programs for them. And, and I think about now, I look at the homeless situation, and I'm saying, if we think about how much money has been spent from the previous administration and this one, if money was the answer to that, we should not have any homeless. Then so that means it takes more than just money. It takes folks having a mission and a vision. It means lifting folks up, letting folks understand that it's okay to be down, but when that hand comes to lift you up, you have also got to be a participant in your own care, mental, physically, and spiritually. And lots of times I don't think that we do that. We always want to have programs and money, and we think, but it has to be a mental state for that person. we used to do a program called Mirroring. And that was like that we would have cameras in the room. We would do a group of 15. And they were homeless folks that had come in, but we had them do what we call a statement. We had them write down what they would like to do, how they see themselves in 6 months, a year, 2 years.
Right.
We find out what their previous life was like. Why did you come home homeless? What was your situation? And there were different circumstances. Some of them just fell on hard luck. Right. I mean, a lot of them, family breakup, drugs, and so forth. But once they got into the program, and we would start filming them and asking them what their expirations were and then expectations were, and then we would have their peers would critique them.
Okay.
And we would film them, and it was a 10-week program that we put them through. And at the end of that 10-week, they earned points during that time. So, they elevated from this point to that point. We got a contract with JCPenney's to help those that get haircuts, get their hair done, shaves, and those kind of things. And them clothes gave them interview technique skills and all those kind of things. We brought employers in. Once they got to the point where they were ready to interview, we helped them with resumes. They would interview, and we would show them that, and they would see themselves. And it would be amazing once they would get to the point where they were able to go and get a shave, cleaned up, and nice clothes. Then we knew they were ready for the next step to go out and get a job. So those things are important because, if they don't have a buy-in to it, you can give all the money you want. There's not going to be success.
Right. And it's really that person that you're investing in that way. And I know as you've been talking here, and that is something that, where there is something missing in how we're doing things because the money isn't necessarily making that change. And I think sometimes we don't also understand how long it might take for people to get to the place where, or they might never, just based on what they've experienced in life, but really wanting people to feel like they're as complete as they possibly can be. And in some of, your life and everything that you've accomplished. And I was going to ask you one question about this, but I feel like everything that you've done, what is that personal accomplishment that you are most proud of? And then I'll ask you about a professional one, because I think it's important to separate those because, there's different parts of that. And so what is one of the proudest moments of your personal life that you've had so far?
For me, I think as just family, my children, my grandkids, community, and just being able to be a part of all that and watch them grow and mature, and the teachings, that I was able for them to see, and even my grandkids, my great grandkids, that is for me. And being married to my husband for 43 years, and us raising a family and being able to purchase a home out here, a home that we're in now, and having my kids come back to the place where, they were raised in a community. For me, it's very important. That's why it's important for me to continue to work in the community. I've seen Montbello go down and come back, but we're resilient. And I really want to see us get back to that point again, where the homes, I remember our kids and stuff riding the bicycles, walking through the neighborhood, beautiful lawns and all of those things, getting back to that. And then coming back to the place where they started, even though they were doing their lives, and my grandkids, coming back to that. For me, that is so important, and I really thrive on that and just continue to do the work and hope that I can be an inspiration to someone else and, share my experiences and my skills in the workforce and the things that we've done that have made this city a great city, And so for me, that's that. And from a professional level, I would say just continuing the work, Montbello 2020, that's very important to me. I think it's an important project. I think it's an important venture. And working with other organizations, I just love to see us come together and, work hard to and raise our children in the educational piece from a professional level. Education is very important for everyone. Our community, we have 5 dialects here in Montbello. A lot of people say, well, Montbello is so diverse. Well, Montbello has always been diverse. Montbello was diverse when I moved out here.
Right.
We had diversity in our community. We have more now. So it's more important than ever that we all come together across racial, ethnic, socioeconomic, religious, and political lines, could continue the work that we need so that our children and their children can have a future and think about this beautiful place that we live in. And, as I tell folks, Montbello means beautiful mountain, and for me, when I think about the mountains, I think about all the beautiful hues and colors, especially on a sunny day, even on a snow day, you see, and then in the fall, all the colors. For me, that represents Montbello because we have such diversity here.
Oh, I love that. That's so important with, where it connects back and the things that you are proud of and thinking about, your family home and where that's really North Star for your children and for family. And, as you are always ready to help out and provide advice to folks. And you shared a little bit of it today with us, how you made it through your life during really tough times. But what would be some of those words of wisdom? Write down your goals, track what you're doing, pray, make sure that you're depending on family, etc. But other advice that you might give to young people today that might be watching this interview, or really anybody that's maybe struggling, what would be that piece of advice that has kept you going?
My advice for young folks is to always be kind, learn about yourself, be respectful to your parents, your elders, your peers, get an education, read books, explore your world, and just understand that you're not here alone, and if you have struggles, always have someone that you can talk to. I know you always would tell my children and my husband and I that there's nothing you can't discuss with us. And I would say, parents, please take time to listen to your kids. Talk to them. Sit down, have a meal. That's what we used to do. We would have a meal, and you'd be surprised at what you can learn about your children sitting around down the table eating food. Their colors, their wants. You can know if there's something bothering them. And, children are our future.
Right.
And we must invest in them more than just giving them things and money. We also have to teach them that they need to earn things. That's part of the world that they're going to be out there in. And everything's not given to you. And you're going to struggle at times. You're not going to get everything you want. Right. But there is a pathway to that. And that is education and work. You work hard for it, you respect it, and you'll care for it, and you'll nurture it.
Oh, that's perfect advice. I think, I feel like those are words of wisdom that you said to your children many times. And really, I love that when you said, your husband and you would say, you can come to us with anything, because I feel like a lot of times maybe young people don't have those trusted adults or those people who they can go to, and how important it is that young children can come to us with anything.
Yes.
It's never so bad that we can't figure out something to fix it or to take a next step. And so I love that advice for young people. And then, you shared with me earlier that it's your younger brother's birthday today.
Yeah.
And so happy birthday to him. He's 85.
Yes.
It sounded like. And so, you as an older sibling and as a parent and a grandmother, how have you taken care of yourself during all of these years to stay healthy, active, vibrant? I mean, sometimes Miss Ann, honestly, I'm like, Miss Ann has more energy than all of us together, because it's just, I think, recharge when you connect with people, and that's in your nature. And I can definitely tell that it's from your upbringing and how you brought up your children. But what do you do to recharge and care for yourself?
I pray a lot. I believe in, in God, and I pray for strength and courage. And when there are difficult times, I read different scriptures in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And I just always know that there is a way, there's a silver lining.
Mm-hmm.
If you search for it, you pray about it, and you keep the faith, and you just need to take some time for yourself. I love gardening. I love, my flowers. I love my plants, and I do that. That is kind of my release. The other is, reading, and just sometimes just connecting with some of my friends,
Mm-hmm.
that are singers, like Miss Neal and Miss Esther and Miss Dash.
You have that calling tree.
Yes. And, we talk, and Miss Birdine, we talk, and sometimes, we talk spiritual stuff. We talk about old times. We talk about now and the troubling times. And, I just try to keep that, because I know there has to be a better way. We just really need to find it, work together, and strive for it. And I do believe through that we can make it happen. And so that's my recharging, and also my grandbabies, and then my children. We do conference calls and things like that, and so that is my recharger.
That's so beautiful, where your family and just that connectiveness and those hobbies that you have and that you're really committed to, and you are very good at protecting your time as well, because you have those goals and priorities. And so it's been such a beautiful morning to spend with you here, visiting a little bit about your life and everything that you've accomplished, Miss Ann. Is there anything that you that we didn't talk about or that we missed?
No, not really. The only other thing I would say was my time at Abex Corporation, when I was hired there, and I know time is running short, but that just experience there. That was another time when, working through difficult times. That was during the civil rights era, and when companies that had federal contracts had to hire minorities and women. And that was a struggle. And I was in personnel office at that time, and we were able to hire, women into those jobs and get them trained. That was the first time when I met Mr. Fletcher, who is the father, they say, of the, affirmative action.
Right.
He actually came to visit that site to see how things were progressing and everything. And Arthur Fletcher. And there was a privilege to be able to meet him. And then the next time I saw him was when I was out at the airport.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and the civil rights movement and how important affirmative action was, and where, we're still fighting for a lot of those rights. It was a promise.
And a lot of the gains that we had, I mean, they've kind of
Right. They can be eroded if we don't stay diligent.
If we don't stay on it. So that's why I really push for folks to register and vote. That's one of my pet peeves too.
Yes.
And everything. But it is such a pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you.
Be able to talk with you. And as we were talking about 2020, I was reminiscing, just thinking about some of those times when we would get funds together, go in our pocketbooks to have some little snacks.
Right. And I'd be bringing my kids along after school. We're like, we're gonna go do this with Montbello 2020, and I mean, we kept the faith. During that time, and we do.
And I thank you so much for all that you have done and all that you do. You are such an inspiration. You really are. Well, I see those grown folks of yours, and then I think about how young they were then, and I think about mine. So we have come through, and by faith and trusting.
Oh, well, and we're not done yet.
No, we're not.
Lots to come as well. Oh my gosh.
People always say to me, I thought you retired. I said, I did retire, but I'm not tired.
Right.
So,
right. Exactly.
As long as I have that energy and God gives me that strength, I'll keep on toiling, as they say.
Oh my gosh. Well, and you bringing up, the amazing women that you were named after, some of the people that you worked with. And I remember when you were telling the story about Landry, the way you were telling it, I could see him saying that. And Landry would always say, well, the sun will rise again tomorrow. And it was that old advice of that there's nothing too hard that we can't get through it.
That's right. If we
just do it,
work together and put our heads together and treat each other with dignity and respect and pride.
Well, we love you, Miss Ann, and we love everything you do, and are just excited to be able to share a little bit more about your story. And so thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you.
Wonderful.